Well, color me unsurprised. Nakaba Suzuki could not commit to a bit. What's up, guys? That guy with a pencil here. Fun fact, I do it too. Have it on me and keep it on me at all times. The other fun fact, here we are to do a breakdown and review of chapter 232 of Four Knights of the Apocalypse. I was trying to rhyme that last part too, but like, Apocalypse? 232? I don't know. But regardless, chapter 232, Inheritors of Will. Now, this chapter, I mean, I just don't like, I don't like the half measures, but it's part of like the question I always end up asking, right? If I know for a fact that an author isn't going to commit, should I take points off or should I deride them for not committing? Because, like, yeah, no duh, he wasn't gonna commit. It's Nakaba Suzuki. This is the same guy who brought back how many random background characters, admittedly sometimes to the benefit, right? I do love how big and how developed the Sevendeadlysins world is, because nobody dies. But at the same time, you give the stipulation of death, you don't stick to it. You don't stick to it. I mean, it leads to me almost locking out instead of locking in. I lock out more when there's supposedly death stakes. And this chapter is another fantastic example of that. But, as always, I find myself really, really positive leaning on the character writing in this chapter. Right? So, like, it's the toss-up of doom and despair, I'd say. Where, like, half of me is like, you gotta learn. I don't know what we gotta do. I throw you into asylum or something. How we gonna get you to commit? But at the same time, the character writing is really, really good. And I almost, like, there's an aspect of the lack of commitment that sort of feeds into the tragedy all the more. If it's a false hope, but it's not going to Suzuki. It's not going to be a false hope. Right? I don't know. We have a lot to talk about, though. So let's not waste more time. Let's hop right into chapter 232, Inheritors of Will. This is a nice little cover page. Mel and Elizabeth. I still say this, and I'll get into it more later. Mel, I'd say, is fine enough utilized in Four Knights. To the point where I'm like, yeah, you definitely still do have an emotional connection to him. Even if you didn't read the original series, or if you only read the original series once, and that was a long, long time ago, remember? I think the manga ended back in, what, like 2021? 2020? So, like, if you've only read the manga, if you're like your boy and didn't really watch the anime, you didn't really have too much exposure to Mel in Four Knights, but you had enough. They actually have a genuine emotional connection to the character. Elizabeth and Mel's relationship, their dynamic, it's not as well explored as it could have been. Let me just say that as a starter. But hopping into the chapter itself, we see the spontaneous, beautiful, amazing daytime, poof, literally pop and poof, right back into night. As, if you'll remember, as Nasians and Anne point out, look at the sky. Oh, right. It'd be night right now. That demon cat was taking it over. Truly a fearsome foe, wasn't it? Yes. And yeah, Cat did literally pull an inverse Chandler, ironically enough. Now, obviously, it seems like Cat was specifically just releasing a whole bunch of light. Right, like he changed the battlefield, not in the way that Chandler did. Like I've seen arguments that Chandler like just spreads his own darkness out to make nighttime, but it is known as like true real night. If he was just doing that and all demons could do that, wouldn't they just all make like dark zones, especially demons of Chandler's tier? Maybe like there aren't that many demons of Chandler's tier. Mel, Zell, and Cusack all would have done it. Heck, the original demon could have kept it up, or would have done it. To be fair, that was broken through by Mael. So. This is just technically another creation feat for Cap. He literally made it daytime. We don't see a star here, though. We don't see, like, a star poof out of existence. So I'm guessing he was legit just horror farming, I suppose, and releasing his light literally anywhere and everywhere. But we do have Nasians and Anne here admitting how fearsome Cap really was in his opponent. And I'll admit, why were y'all here? Well, to be fair, I get why Gareth is here. Gareth was, like, fundamentally so core to the plan that I'm like, the plan probably wouldn't have even wrought properly if it wasn't for Gareth. So Gareth is goated. I get why Gareth had to stick around, but man, what did y'all do other than be hostages? I'm gonna make a my thoughts video talking about the cat fight, right? Like I have to at this point, because obviously I give my thoughts as a review, but I've thought about it more, and I'm up on it in some aspects. I'm more down on it in other aspects. The integration of the side cast definitely is a down aspect of it. That's only gotten, like, worse the more and more I've thought about it. Except for the Garrett thing, which has only gone up. But, with it being the case, we see that everyone is essentially goated, right? No one perished. Everyone's alive. Everyone's happy. And even if literally all of Leonis was destroyed, apparently they have enough food and beds in Leonis castle. So it's a good thing that Kath only slashed that thing in half and didn't absolutely eviscerate it. Create multiple solar systems, arguably multiple galaxies, by the way. But regardless, we see Pelio, my glorious handsome goat, say, "Right, everybody." Yes, Pelio, yeah. Right, everybody, inside the castle now. We're saved. I think it's literally Edlin saying that, which is hilarious. It's like, we're saved. I thought we were deep fried there. Not gonna lie to you, twin. But we see that Pelio says, "We have food and beds for you, for all of you." Which, remember, they essentially, we do know there are some people who were in Camelot who stayed in Camelot. And by some people, I mean Jericho. Like, Jericho had the opportunity to leave, didn't leave, and is staying with a little fake boy toy. I do genuinely wonder, though, like, how passive is Cass Magic? Like, did her lands disappear? Because we know a good chunk of, like, Camelot's land disappeared. But I'm not sure, because it seems like that instance we saw, right, with Jericho and her fake, like, Lance meeting fake Lance, and then fake Lance bringing Jericho the opportunity to leave, and Jericho destroying that. Obviously, that takes place before this moment, because she's like, "I'm just gonna stay here with my Lancey boy forever." But in that case, I do genuinely wonder, your Lancey boy, is he gone? Like, all the illusions that were maintained by Cath's continued existence, and obviously the many hopes and dreams of people, like, is it falling apart? Did Jericho sell the bag for literally nothing? I don't know. But that does seem to be, well, the point I'm trying to make here is they did call back literally everybody who was willing. And many people who probably weren't willing, as we saw with them initially getting mad at the Seven Deadly Sins, because they had their own ideal dreams. Because they were tricked into taking the thing and going along with it. So the fact that they have that much space in one castle, that's a lot of space. But we see that one of the civilians goes, "Oh, look! Darkmont and its castle are back," which is also a very interesting byproduct. That was something I definitely was, like, subconsciously wondering about, but didn't actually end up mentioning. Yeah, what does happen? Obviously, we know the land itself disappeared, but it's weird to think that the land that Cath stole itself would return too, right? Like, why? What was the reasoning for that to return, right? Because that implies that Cath was actively holding those pieces of land in Camelot. Is it like it's just an auto-correction thing? Kind of like how the world didn't let 2 Demon King tier opponents, even though Mal's definitely, like, every single character that is here at this point is well beyond Demon King tier. Like, the world should be exploding. But at least in Seven Deadly Sins, 2 characters with Demon King tier magics couldn't exist at the same time. So was it like an auto-balancing thing where Cath, now that he's not actively doing it, it's kind of like a Reality Stone kind of timing, where if he's not actively engaged with keeping the world locked in, parts come back? So, like, are those massive chunks we saw in Leonis, are they back already? Are some of them back? Are all of them back? I don't know. It's a really strange thing to establish that it worked like that. But, with being the case, we see Hauser, who was on the front lines, and Gil Thunder, who wasn't. Buddy, where were you? Like, he wasn't even guarding Elizabeth and Isolde and Bartra or Slater. No, he just wasn't there. He was just chilling with his wife. Gil Thunder, what the heck, man? Hauser was out there fighting for his life. But obviously, Gil Thunder sees his brother-in-law and goes, "Griamore, you're right." And we get a look at post-time skip Griamore. He doesn't look like his dad at all. I think the funny thing is, I think it's because he has no stash. He just went full beard. I'll admit, very thick, very luscious beard. There's a guy who can't grow a beard beyond this point. Very thick, very luscious beard. But he is big and hefty and bearded up. And we see him happy to see his brother-in-law. So you'll remember he's married to Veronica. And we see that Hauser says, "Dredrin, I'm glad to see you're well." And Dredge was like, "Hauser, we're back." I do wonder what was up with them in particular. Like, did they, like, especially for them, I wonder what their hypothetical, beautiful Camelot illusion dream was, right? Because for Griamore, I guess it probably could have been Fraudrin still being alive, right? I forget. I know all the way back. In fact, do I go all the way back to illustrate my point? Let me see. I'm going to go all the way back. But essentially, all the way back when Arthur first appeared, you know who we did see in that, like, massive broadcast he had to try and convince people to come to his side? Or Carther trying to convince people to come to his side? Monspeet. Monspeet was there. He was part of that massive, like, hey, come here. I have great things to show you. In fact, yeah. So, but I don't see Fraudrin. Because, to be fair, he wasn't in the kingdom at the time. But I'm assuming that's probably what Griamore's was. I'm not sure what Dredrin or Veronica's would have been. Because as far as they knew, everyone was still alive. Like, maybe Veronica had her mother or something. But, like, Dredrin especially, like, was he just stuck? I don't know. But you'll note here, all the way back when Carther was initially Carther in it, Monspeet's here. We know Monspeet is here because Derriere, aka Thetis, was in the kingdom at the time, so she was being pandered to with that. Oh, I just realized that's a reference to Nakua's older series. I never noticed that, and all the times I looked at this panel, but yeah, that's his main character from one of his older series. But all that being the case, they are back, and I do think the reason why it was very likely. In fact, where was Dreyfus? I actually don't know, but essentially the reason why I think Griamore named Dredrin is because it's a combination of both of his father's names. Fraudrin is where the Rin comes from, and then Dreyfus. Well, no, Fraudrin. So, like, Fraudrin itself, Drin, comes from Fraudrin, and then Dredrin is Dreyfus. So, Griamore did name, like, he still genuinely did. And that is a plot point that's established in the extras of the original manga. Griamore spent so much time with Fraudrin as his father that he genuinely did view him as a father. So, it is nice to see that legacy live on in Dredrin's name. But, of course, we then get to see Veronica reunite with Margaret. She goes, "Big sis!" And Margaret goes, "Oh, I'm so glad, Veronica." Which hits extra special because, as far as she knows, their other sister is no longer with them. As we see Veronica naturally ask, "Huh? What's the matter?" And Margaret goes, "Well, Nakaba Suzuki-sensei couldn't commit to the bit." But we see Diane and King look over the absolute wreckage that is Leonis now, right? Like, it's absolutely terrible after the entire bit of conflict. I'll talk about it a bit here. I definitely... Well, to be fair, though, they didn't have a teleport spell. They wasted all that energy. They wasted their one teleporter on Thetis in order to make sure she could get all the people back. And that's not a waste. That's technically a good thing. But I definitely think they could have moved this somewhere else, right? Like, especially considering how powerful they were relative to Kath, they could have just forcefully moved the battle. Like, my point is, there was no reason for them to keep it in Leonis. I mean, I like that they kept it in Leonis, because I do prefer when major battles comes between these godly tier characters take place in actual set pieces and not just open wastelands or like a gargantuan lake or a flat platform. But I definitely feel like they could have avoided a whole lot of collateral damage if they had just planned it a little better. Maybe let Thetis build up a few more ounces of magic or something so she can teleport y'all out, or have Mel or Bond, who are clearly more than physically strong enough to move Kath easily, especially when he was back in Arthur-size form. Maybe remove him from Leonis instead of just directly engage with them. But that aside, Diane says, "What a horrible sight to see. I'll need to use my force to raise all of this before we can begin to rebuild." Which is crazy that Diane's essentially going to be like, well, hopefully no one had their belongings around. I'm going to flatten everything. But yeah, everything is destroyed. And obviously, while Diane has fine-tuned control over magic, restoring every single individual building, all of which probably aren't exactly made of stone or the same stone, I get why she's like, we just got to restart. Which is a big blow for Leonis, right, from Kath. That is nice enough, even if still, nothing really happens. And we see the king admits, "Well, it's a miracle we suffered 0 casualties. It would have been impossible without Queen Elizabeth's power." And this is one of the things we're going to get into. I won't go fully into it, but I'm going to set up an idea that we're going to talk about later once we get to the Mel part of this chapter. I think King's wrong. I think King's genuinely wrong. And I think King should know he's wrong. And I think Diane may know King's wrong. And I think Mel especially knows he's wrong. And I think Bond maybe even to some degree knows he's wrong. And Gothru probably also knows he's wrong. They could, specifically with how the battle was portrayed to us, they could have done so much better. And that is an innate, fundamental problem that I'll talk about a bit more. And I'm obviously going to talk about in the My Thoughts video as I go over the entirety of this little section of the narrative. But naturally, we see that after King gives his due respect to Elizabeth for, basically hard carrying in terms of longevity and utility, making sure that no one goes down, Diane begins to well up with tears in her eyes. And we see King go, "Oh, sorry. Dude, that's your wife. You didn't think she'd care about losing one of her best friends?" Dog. I know King himself didn't have too much of a dynamic with Elizabeth. It just wasn't really a thing. So I understand his more like, well, they want to be like that sometimes, especially with the state Elizabeth is in, particularly. It's not even like she did truly die. It's probably why Diane isn't actually breaking down into full tears. She's just, crying a little bit as she knows that she may not see her friend awake ever again. Maybe. Probably not, though. But we see that Diane says, "No, I am sure the captain is taking it the worst." And we cut to the inside of Leonis Castle, a room on a crystal ball, as Tristan goes, "What? You defeated King Arthur? Holy cow, you're not kidding me, Gothru? Do we even have a main villain right now? What is Sensei cooking? What's the plot right now?" If Kath actually got washed, what's happening? And Gotham's like, calm down, calm down, calm down. You know, Nakaba's you can't commit to a bit. As he goes, to be exact, it was Kath Paluk, a demon cat aiming for the chaotic force inside of Arthur. Which is a very important distinction. Once again, I mean, like, as much rigmarole, roundabout, tickle my toes, wiggle my nose. Tickle my toes, wiggle my nose? Why did I tickle my toes and wiggle my nose? Shouldn't I wiggle my toes and tickle my nose? But regardless, as much as all that is, I've been able to gaslight myself a lot about Arthur, right? I've been able to fully huff the biggest, thickest, meatiest cans of copium you've ever seen about that scenario. Lord, I can't speak. That scenario, right? I still overall am net negative on it, right? I still don't think Arthur was the best move. I still think they should just commit to the King Arthur being evil bit. It's been done before. You could have done it again. You just had to work for it. You had to work for it, and not clearly didn't want to work for it. But in that same case, I just noticed Mike Lori's King Hawk. I didn't notice that in the live reaction. When you check it over on Patreon for those 1 month, remember for those Theodore about to hear the live reaction to this chapter. But look at Hawk, bro. Strong. Literally the strong. I need Hawk versus Lance now. I genuinely need to know. Though presumably Lance probably still slams. But regardless, yeah. I feel like Kath being Arthur, like he's just not as interesting as it is to gaslight myself and be like, oh yes, well technically even if he isn't actually Arthur, he clearly was influenced by Arthur as shown by the design of the cowlick in his humanoid physical form, and obviously with all the chaos tendrils coming out of him, chaos itself is directly influencing him, so he technically got 3 characters for the price of 1. It's not really Arthur. It's just Kath being tempered, and him being tempered just doesn't it. But with it being the case, we see that Tristan goes, huh? As his picture with Mel and Elizabeth is in the background, he goes, and to be further exact, we did defeat him, but he's likely still alive. Huh? If he was that easy to address, we wouldn't have sent you over to Camelot. And this is my other major problem, right? It could have waited. Unironically, especially with them not having context for Arthur being Kath, it really could have waited. Lance, here's the thing. Lance being here alone. Elizabeth wouldn't be in a coma right now. Heaven forbid, all the 4 knights, like, I know there's very, very hot contention on where the 4 knights generally stand in comparison to the 7 deadly sins. Like, people are still hot debating, especially if, you know, even the weakest, or even the strongest of the 4 knights, that's not Lance, if they even scale to sin tier, especially with Diane doing so well against, base Diane only doing so well against Kath, and even Pelgard, or Super Giga Chaos and Pelgard, and obviously King 2v1ing 2 of the 4 evils that were giving our knights extreme trouble. Like, but still, Lance alone would have been enough to turn the tide of the battle, really specifically. And they didn't have, like, my big thing with how they did it is that they chose to do it in the way that they did. I think there are 2 ways you flip this script and make everything happen the exact same way. Kind of, sort of. I still would change some aspects of the fight itself. But make everything happen the exact same way, but then it's fine if not good writing. And the main thing is you have to switch who rolled for initiative. Who made the first move? It should not have been the Seven Deadly Sins crew. It should not have been the Leonis crew. Because by making it the Leonis crew, they just seem generally incompetent. Lance alone would have been enough to bully Kath. You literally could have had Lance, Mel, and Bond swapping out continuously if they needed to do the swap out thing, I guess. They could have infinitely bullied Kath out of existence. They could have infinitely bullied Arthur out of existence. Kath ultimately was a threat that they chose to tackle in the way they chose to tackle in the stupidest way possible. Yes, bring all these easy hostage scenarios to the one place that centralizes everybody so they can easily be taken hostage. And then on top of that, don't do anything to move them afterwards except move them slightly out of the range of the kingdom. That's it. No further thought. No further thinking of like, oh, well, actually, this could probably backfire a whole lot if he's going to take everybody hostage, which he very easily did as he's been kidnapping people this entire time. Like, it's still not the best. It's still not the best. You still need to work around a whole lot, but still. Sending the 4 knights away was dumb. Sending the 4 knights away and then leaving their subordinates behind, dumb. Outside of Gareth. I get Gareth was a fundamental part of the plan, but still. Change the role for it. Do something else, man. The way they started this war is like the worst way they could have done it. They just sold horribly. And I'm going to talk about that more in my thoughts video. And in a second, once we get to the actual part where I want to talk about a person who sold really, really hard. But, Lord, stop being dry. Please, let me speak. But, no, please. No, please. Blah, 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 blah. But, oh, stop, please. But, yeah, good point. Oh, wait, Tristan, you should ask them now. We see Percival and Tristan double teaming up on the crystal ball. And, like, to be fair, Tristan says, yeah, good point, way too easily. Because, like, it really wasn't. Like, they really shouldn't. Like, they shouldn't have. Like, what was the limitation on them going to Camelot afterwards? What? Did they, like, if anything, I'd assume they may. But no! Guinevere didn't tell anybody. Least of all Lance. So, like, I was about to say, like, well, maybe they sent Lance away because of the whole prophecy of Lance slaying Bond or something like that. But no! They didn't know that. Guinevere didn't tell them anything. Lance didn't ask for any of that information. And Kat didn't know either. So, yeah, sending the knights away was dumb. They should have just had them there. You know who could have done a massive life heal and kept sustaining everybody's life to the point where Elizabeth wouldn't have had to slaughter herself if they still sold anyway? If Lance plus Bond and Mel sold anyway? You know who could have done it? Think. Oh, yeah, the two Giga healers in Tristan and Percy. One who can directly heal the body, soul, and everything with life spirits, and the other who just has really good physical healing. Wow, that would have been really, really useful, alongside Elizabeth's already regular cracked base healing. But no, we had to send them away. Oh, yeah, Lance, the strongest guy in the verse, probably, according to Bond himself, who's also apparently the strongest guy in the verse, apparently. Yeah, no, it wouldn't be useful to have him here. Just send him away. Even though he could have bullied Arthur. Like, it's just like they did this. They did the stupid thing. Like, there was no rush. There was no incentive. If Cat, like, literally, I don't talk about it in my thoughts. I keep saying my thoughts because I don't want to spend too much time here doing it, but I'm going to bring it up. If all Nakaba had to do was make Kath invade full force. You realistically, I wouldn't even do the whole hostage thing. Or like have it be dual initiative, right? Have Kath decide to invade in the same instant that they teleport everybody out, and it's a mess. It's a chaotic mess, and for some. But then again, the Four Knights would still be away, and that still doesn't make sense. Like, I don't know. But regardless, it doesn't make sense. I'd have to think about it. I haven't done a rewrite in a long, long time. I may have to do a rewrite for this because I feel like it's so close to working. It's like you just have to tweak really major things. But you need to tweak some major things, and this works so much better than it does right now. But we see that Bond and Gother are the ones talking to the rest of the Four Knights, to the Four Knights themselves, because, well, realistically, it's just Gother, because they don't want, presumably they don't want Lance to know that Bond is now old and essentially on the verge of death, and also, Elizabeth isn't really here anymore. And Gother naturally asks, what, is there a problem, Tristan? And Tristan admits, well, I'll be honest, I felt a weird wave of anxiety earlier. Like, something bad happened over in Leonis. But you said that nobody was killed, right? Very specific wording there, I do like that. As Gother is able to lie by omission, by saying, yes, nobody was killed. And we see that Tristan goes, wow, you guys constantly amaze me, which is very impressive when you don't know the context of Sally. But we see that Percival will go, I'm assuming it's Percival, or probably Gawain goes, hey, quit hogging this! And Tristan goes, oh, sorry. And we see Tristan specifically say, oh, Gother, tell my mama and papa that we'll boldly carry out our mission over here. And Gother says, oh, sure, take care. And they turn off the crystal ball. And we see Gother and Bond both look to the individual, the papa that is mentioned here, and also the mama, as Elizabeth is laid out here. And I'll say this is, like, genuinely, the reason why this chapter still bangs, even if I think it does have problems just based on, but to be fair, I can't blame too much of this chapter's problems on the structure of the arc that preceded it. So specifically, and also, once again, I find myself hard-pressed to be mad at Nakaba Suzuki for not coming to the bit when it's Nakaba Suzuki. I'm not shocked he didn't commit to the bit. It's like, I was expecting, what's a good example? It's like expecting walking through rain and to not get wet, right? Like those, these things just don't correlate. They don't happen. So it makes sense that obviously you wouldn't commit to the bit. And in that, these 3 pages of visual storytelling speak to my soul, bro. They speak to my soul. Now, like I said all the way at the start of the review, I still don't think Elizabeth was the best handled character in general. Like, across the duology, I think Elizabeth is done horrifically dirty. Like devious, dangerously, diabolically, horrifically dirty. So much glaze, so much hype, so much schlop. I'm talking, I'm talking grade A through the moon. You could call it a devious kind of Batman goon level slop of Elizabeth. But she does basically nothing, right? She's a healbot, and she gets like 2 seconds to actually fight, even though she was supposedly equal to Prime Mel back in the day. Like, Prime, strongest creature in the world outside the gods, Mel. She was his direct equal, and we just don't really get to see any of that. I mean, she did a cool Let There Be Light thing, but like in terms of combat, she's not built for the narrative, or isn't allowed to be built for the narrative. So Elizabeth, already in the original series, wasn't done too well, and I still say the same thing here, because it's even worse, because Elizabeth has less screen time. The pass you could maybe give to original Seven Deadly Sins Elizabeth is that, oh, well, yeah, she doesn't do much, but at least she's around. But Elizabeth doesn't really have many interactions in Four Knights. She has some like baby stuff, and obviously she just had her big moment, but her big moment hits a little hollow. She hasn't done much of anything. She doesn't have many dynamics with anyone but her own kid. Even then, we barely get to see that. Like, she didn't do much. Elizabeth is, unfortunately, just because of the way Nakaba Suzuki writes, and I'm blaming Nakaba. It's Nakaba Suzuki. The way Nakaba Suzuki writes, Elizabeth is the weak link in terms of the emotional investment side of things. However, and it does suck to say, but however, Meliodas, as many a time before, is the strong link that makes this work all the more. Specifically, this panel speaks to me a lot, but this one here too. Mel just looking at Elizabeth. Now, it'll be going to reveal that Elizabeth is just in a coma. And I say just in a coma with barely any heartbeat, but like, it's not with Suzuki, right? You can literally see Nakaba rip the character in half on panel, and they'll still come back. And I'm not talking about a demon. He's done horrific things to characters with no healing factor, and they made it back just fine. Y'all see how Hendrickson was looking after season 1? That man was like barely a torso and an arm, and Nakaba was like, yeah, have him survive to the sequel series by demon blood regen. Like, he legit, he doesn't do this whole, oh, we're gonna slaughter major character thing, slaughter major characters things, the slaughter major characters thing. We don't do that. Not around here, partner. Not around here. But what matters in this moment is that Elizabeth is not here, and very specifically, in a way, I like this more than if Elizabeth was dead, because it leaves Mel in the worst case scenario possible. One thing that has just been facts, that realistically is another thing that should have been handled at the end of Original Seven Deadly Sins, but you know, these things happen, is that Mel and Elaine, two of the main lovers of Seven Deadly Sins, the original series, they were stuck in the ultimate catch-22. Mel was immortal, and is practically still immortal thanks to his royal demon biology. But Elizabeth never was immortal. She was mortal, in fact. Even with her goddess-human hybrid biology and all that stuff, she still wasn't going to live the longest. Bond had the same issue when he gave the Fountain of Youth in order to restore Elizabeth, or to restore Elaine. He was going to live arguably, possibly even shorter than Elizabeth, considering he was just an adapted and evolved dude, but a dude nonetheless, a human. So there was this underlying current of tragedy that Mel and Elaine were always going to have to deal with, of like, yeah, one day, which will be in the realistically like the blink of an eye for me, the person I love the most in this world is going to die. And there's nothing I can do about that other than consistently go to the Capital of the Dead entrance and just bum around in there as long as I can. And or myself, which obviously neither of them would want to do, because Elizabeth, or no, because Meliodas is the king of Leonis and has the rest of the Seven Deadly Sins to lead, and he has his own son that he wouldn't want to abandon. And same thing with Elaine, who is the queen of Benwick, has a whole kingdom to run, especially in Bond's eventual absence, and ultimately has a son she deeply cares about. Both of which sons should be relatively long-lived, right? Like, we don't know how much of Lance's royal fairy biology has overridden his human biology, how much of Bond's evolved physiology has helped Lance lock lifespan, but he's been growing like a normal human, but presumably he's going to stop at a certain point and then just live for a really, really long time. Same thing with Tristan, who is at least partially biologically goddess and is half royal demon. And once again, lowballing the moon out of the Demon King's lifespan alone, right? Over 1 billion years. That's just casual for the Demon King. So Tristan is also presumably going to be very long-lived. So the parents definitely wouldn't want to abandon their children. So to see Mel be put in a scenario that is worse than Elizabeth dying, because at least if Elizabeth was dead, he could go visit her in the Capital of the Dead. That's already been an established part of the universe, and he knows where it is. He didn't forget that. At least presumably he didn't. But now Elizabeth is in a coma. She's gone. But still there. Meaning he can look at her. He can hold her hand. He can engage with her. But the woman that he spent literal millennia fighting for is gone. Gone in this in-between state of life and death where he can't speak to her on either side. And he either has to sit here forever, assuming she never wakes up, which she probably will, but assuming she never wakes up, he needs to either sit here forever and watch as the person he loves slowly but surely age and fade away. Which, once again, from his perspective, will probably be a blink of an eye, considering how many lifetimes he's lived and will go on to live. And, or he's going to have to end himself, which I still don't think he would do. So that conundrum of leaving Elizabeth alive but comatose, I like that. I like that idea that Mel really has no way to communicate with the woman he loved and the woman he sacrificed his entire life for. And the other thing that I do like about this, even if it's not said in any words at all, as Elizabeth just mogs me on every single level, the jawline, the hairline, everything, she's just good with the sauce. It's this look right here that makes me genuinely believe, and this is definitely me, in the same way that I huff copium about Carther, I'm going to huff some copium about Mel. I think Mel knows he messed up. I think Mel knows in the bottom of his heart, in his left big toe, in everything that he is, he messed up. He sold. I think Mel understands that, right? If Mel probably is thinking, if only I had planned this better. If only I had taken it more seriously. If only I had kept the pressure on. If only I had done more to the point where she wouldn't have had to do this. Because that's the big thing that I keep talking about, and I think is very important, and why I think Kath needed some narrative rebalancing before they ended up doing this. The sins sold. King, in particular, definitely sold, but Bond sold by standing around and not consistently attacking Kath. Mel sold by standing around, holding back, and consistently not attacking Kath. They gave up the game for no reason, especially once they knew it was Kath. For Meliodas to say, like 5 times over, oh yeah, now I can finally stop holding back on you, and to still be holding back, and still be holding back, and still be holding back. He's the reason his wife is not like this. Because he himself refused to take the battle seriously as he should have, when he was given full free reign to. He did that to himself. He fumbled. He failed. And I think that's what he's thinking. Because notably, Mel doesn't even look mad. He doesn't even look angry. There's no like, you could argue maybe this is the same as that, like, deep sea of rage that he ended up taming back in the original series. But I think he's looking at it, and if anything, that rage is not directed, well, probably it is partially directed towards Kath, but it's directed towards himself, because he knows he could have done better. And I like that. I like the idea that Mel has it in his head that, oh, this is my fault. The reason Elizabeth is in this state, and I don't know if she'll ever wake up, and I don't know if I'm just going to have to sit here and watch her age until she dies, is because of choices that Mel made. He decided to haphazardly run to the war. He decided to send the Four Knights away. He is the leader. He is the king of Leonis, and all the sins bow and kowtow to him. Even if he took suggestions, which we don't know, maybe he took suggestions from Gother, he is the one who made the final choice. And because of his choices in particular, both before the battle and during the battle, he lost the love of his life after fighting literal millennia for her. And the tragedy in that is beautiful. I like that. That's the thing. As much as I want to get on the chapter's case, I can't because of how much I love that aspect of it. That is glorious. And maybe like, Pencil, maybe reading a little bit too deep into it. And maybe. But I think the interpretation is right there. I can see it in his eyes. I can see it in his face. I can see it as he stares at Elizabeth. That is what I'm taking from it. And if you guys disagree, that's fine. But I think I know ball on this one. But with that being the case, we get established that obviously Nakaba Suzuki can't commit to a bit. As Bon and Gother stand outside, and Bon asks, "Hey, Gother, how's the princess doing?" And Gother explains, "She has a heartbeat, if barely. But that's it. I doubt she'll wake up again." So she's gonna wake up again. She'll be fine. But, at least in this moment, she's not, which is fine. And we see that Gother admits, Queen Elizabeth continuously released force that only the gods can normally wield. She may be the daughter of the supreme deity, but her body is human. It's a shock she didn't die. Now this does, like, I will say this, not only would her dying be still kind of weird, but also, and not fit Nakaba's whole style as an author, but on top of that, it has been consistently stated over and over again, I think sometimes in internal and in external materials, that Elizabeth's body is weird, especially, like, this incarnation in particular is oddly weird, because, like, her human soul, or her human body and her goddess soul have, like, literally mixed. Like, they have pulled a Powerball, burst open, and mixed together into this weird hybrid state. So Elizabeth has always, at this point, kind of been a goddess-human hybrid. So presumably the reason she lived, even if her human half nearly gave out on her, is because of her goddess half and that higher constitution and survivability. So I do like that. It's been softly established though, and once again, we do struggle from the oh, well, we just didn't know that much about Elizabeth, right? A lot of that implication of Elizabeth having like true, genuine goddess biology deep down wired into her human core comes from like some things here in the original, some things here and there in the early original series / late early series, and also external statements. You wouldn't know about that if you just read the manga week to week. So this would probably feel cheaper than it already does kind of feel cheap. And I do feel bad. Like, Elizabeth finally got to God tier powers, and she lasted all of 5 minutes. Like, that's really, really unfortunate. But, with it being the case, we see that Gother admits, I'm going to stay in Leonis for a while to help. What about you? And we see Bong say, I'll head back to Benwick. Gotta tell the gang at the Fairy King's Forest. And that is true, right? Mael, Gelda, and Zeldris are all in the Fairy King's Forest. Is it a thing? Are they in the Fairy King's Forest or Mel? I think they're in the Fairy King's Forest. Yeah, I think they're in the Fairy King's Forest. Yeah, they're in the Fairy King's Forest. Who else am I thinking of? I think like Matrona and them. Someone else is guarding Benwick. Actually, I think Zell is guarding Benwick. Hold on. Well, regardless, we do know that very powerful characters are just sitting around waiting, and now Bond does have a job to do. But of course, Bond is also basically going to die. And we see that Gotha just looks on to Bond, not necessarily saying what he obviously knows to be true, but just watching as Bond goes with his steps. And Bond says, hey, Gotha, take care of Meliodas for me. And we see in the moon hanging high in the sky, Bond walks, and coughs up blood once again. Now that he no longer has perfect time maintaining his physical form, his organs are failing. He's still dying. And he laughs it off, going, for a guy like me, it's been about the funnest life ever. From here on in, Lance, it's your turn. And I also still don't buy this. Do I know a way this could be reversed? Not really. As we do know the Goddess Clan does have like weird, silly interaction with the time. If the Demon Clan is centered around like having weird interactions with the space, the Goddess Clan definitely is centered around weird interaction with the time. But I just don't see Nagaba killing Bond. Especially like the way he off-screen cuts it here. Like, oh yeah, look, Bond's probably gonna die from old age. Like, yeah, okay, sure, I'll believe it when I see it, and we're not gonna see it. But still, in universe, right? That is very much same with the whole idea of Elizabeth not actually dying, being like a lack of commitment to the bit after saying that she could die. Realistically, that is a meta-narrative, higher dimensional, oh yeah, I'm literally reading a story, and I know the person who writes the story kind of analysis. In universe, Bond believes he's going to die. And that's what matters. In universe, Meliodas believes that he may never see his wife again. That's what matters. In these moments, that is what matters. The character's emotions and then how you feel about their emotions. That's what matters most. And I do like that Bond is just essentially willing to be like, hey, I lived a good life. Over 1,000 years with my best friend. Having a wife, having a son. Being able to resurrect my wife. Like, he's admitting in this instant, yeah, I'm good. I made it out. I did well. And that's all I can do. But we see that upon the mentioning of Lance goes, Achoo! Woo! What the heck? And we see that Percival goes, the seven deadly sins just completely blow my mind. And Tristan goes, yeah, I can't believe they really beat King Arthur. And we see Gawain note, rare to see the world's strongest man catch a cold. And Lance goes, whew, yeah, I don't really, did someone say my name in vain? But we see the beautiful dynamic here as Lance goes, oh, dude, were you even listening to them? That Arthur was a cat faking it. And he's not even dead yet. Which, once again, it's fine. Like, obviously, but like, do I really, like, I didn't care about Kath initially as an antagonist. Bringing him back isn't going to make me care. Like, there's no sad deluge of Kath backstory that I'm going to be like, oh, my heart, oh, Kath, how terrible your life is. Actually, you're one of the greatest villains of all time. No. Kath is a bum. It's probably going to forever be it. Like, he's not ever escaping this. So, yeah, fine. You don't commit to the bit. But, like, I'd really, like, when Kath comes back, I'm not really going to be excited about it. I'm just going to be more disappointed. But we see that both go, yeah, we heard. And Gawain says, oh, yeah, and that in mind, do you still intend to keep fighting us for? And we see multiple knights of Camelot just laid out viciously. Lance literally sitting on one of them just to, flex the aura a little bit. But we see that the knights are in denial, right? Because they weren't there, they didn't get to witness it. And it is nice to see that there are multiple knights who still do have high, heavy belief in Camelot, and they're probably the ones literally holding it together right now, as Kath is indisposed. And we see the characters say, "His Majesty was a fake." And one of the other plague doctor-esque knights goes, "No, it can't be." And one of the other knights goes, how could we ever believe your delusional rantings? You're huffing copium." And we see, oh boy, do I wish we were having copium news out there all along. But we see Lance say, "Okay, have fun rotting here forever then. And if you want another shot at me, go ahead. I'll beat your cheeks in every time. No Guinevere." And we see them walk along this area in Camelot as 4 separate knights pull up with them. Or not with them, but against them. And I do like these designs as they go, "Those are the 4 knights of the apocalypse. The targets we must take out." And bada bing, bada boom, we have these presumably mystery knights in the room. And I'm excited. Overall, like I said, I have my complaints with the chapter, just the general arc as a whole. This is the wrap up to it. But still a W chapter. Like I said, the character work is just too good. The character interaction is just... Let me redo that. That was weak. There we go. But the character interactions are really, really good. The character dynamics are really, really good in this chapter. The art is fantastic in this chapter. The visual storytelling, everything in this chapter does hit to the point where I can't bring myself to knock it down or take away worthiness because of my own personal gripes with how Nakamura writes his story sometimes. Right? Like, it functions. I just don't like how it functions. I feel like it could be functioning better. But overall, if you haven't always seen this video, please leave a goddess in slumber in the comment section down below. Well, thank you so much for watching. Please leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe. Make sure that lethal notification bell so you don't miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, you can have a page down below where you support me for as low as $1 a month. Things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. You also now become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. So those perks include the 20-minute live reactions of this very chapter, ad reactions of all my videos, early after access to all my videos, not just early after access to all my videos on the main channel, but all my videos on the second channel that called the reaction, link in the description down below, in the card in the upper right hand corner. On top of that, I do a link to my Ko-Fi down below, where you drop 5 views for a short video, 20 views on video, or any views at all. Any support is always greatly appreciated. Also, my Twitch down below, that got the controller. Roll through for streaming Friday, 8 p.m. and Stizzle. We have a great time. But now, I want to thank you so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is That Got the Pencil, writing off. I'd like to give a thank you to our sketch tier members: Eternal Flame, Red Wolf 4765, Astro, Glacier XZ, Zera, J2 May, Buddha Ura, Yuki Ally, Grim, Ollie, The Boy, Corey Watson, Damon Brown, Tim Thomas, Kaving, ORXN, Logan Guzman, Dead Mean, Keon Stewart, Edwin Igmignoba, Straw, Antavius Mitchell, Superflame Zero, Weary Exile, Alex Kenny, Todd, The Practical One, Landon Clapwick, Heath Nelson, CAET, Plant Crone, Brandon Payne, Black Sage, Multi-Batman Superman, Zalims, Joe Bean, Sleepin' John, The Young Family Pastel Pandora, Mo City King DKG, Angeline Bonnet, Akolade Babatunde, at JDog2656, Union Eye, Funny Dude, Athenzi Shear, Sino King, Sheesh King, Aswin Hedi Prasetya, JMB KD, CCC, Enzo, Kitty Liddy, Gerald Harris, Dino, Victor Jacobs, Axis XC, and RTM Gangatron. Then I'd like to give a thank you to our line art tier patrons: A+A, Dread Zoen, Kevin Encarnacion, Lil Koto, and Sean. Then I'd like to give a thank you to our ink tier member, Shrimpo the 4th Shrimp 06. And then I'd like to give a thank you to our digital art tier members, J Warrior and AZ Void. And then I'd like to give a final thank you to our colored art tier patrons, Joaquin Munoz and Joaquin Munoz.